So what do we know? Well, we had multiple reports that Israel conducted attacks in an area called Karaj and Tehran as well. Iran later on admitted that 4 of its troops, 4 soldiers were killed from the Iranian army, not from the IRGC, in one of the attacks. There was a separate terror attack on the Iranian borders that could have been or could have not been linked, but knowing Israel and some Western countries and how tied they are with certain terrorist movements in the region, wouldn't be surprising that they chose to activate them at that time simultaneously with their attack. Firstly, this attack happened in the Shabbat. It shows you how Jewish this Zionist army is. You're not allowed to use electronic devices, let alone fly F-16s or F-35s. Now, with regards to the route, previously we're speaking about the potential routes that Israel might be taking to go and conduct an attack against Iran. And of course, we had Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, outright rejecting Israel using their airspace to conduct any attacks on Iran. And we had reports yesterday that on the way to attack Iran, Israel went through the route that we were expecting them to use, which is the Syrian line next to Jordan up to certain areas in Iraq, and then conducting attacks on Iran. Now, mind you, some of these attacks did not even occur on top of Iranian airspace. Some of them were so far away, and then they launched air-to-land missiles from areas outside Iranian airspace. This is how petrified they were, that were taken down by Iranian air defense systems, not Russian air defense systems, in particular with the Shaheen missiles, land-to-air Shaheen missiles. Shows you how advanced the air defense capabilities coming from Iran. The worrying thing about this attack is the fact that there were certain reports that some of the Israeli fighter jets came from Jordanian airspace. What does that mean? Does that mean Jordan allowed Israel to attack Iran? Well, that needs to be clarified from the Jordanian authorities. However, we could have had a case where the United States inside of Jordan allowed Israel to use certain routes that it uses to conduct an attack on Iran. That does not provide an excuse to the Jordanian authorities. Why? Because previously the Jordanian authorities said, we intercept anything going on top of our territories or in our airspace. We will intercept anything coming from Iran. We will intercept anything coming from Israel. So far, what we've seen is the fact that they intercepted things coming from Iran, and they didn't blink an eye when it comes to, well, at least the reports that are saying that some of the Israeli fighter jets went over Jordanian airspace. Apparently, and according to reports coming from Iran, this is being looked into and investigated, especially seeing as Jordan wasn't one of the countries that outright said, we will not allow Israel to use our airspace to conduct an attack on Iran. And this was also evident, and we will get to the condemnation part as well later on, but this was also relevant and reflected when we heard the condemnations. We heard condemnations of the attack from Saudi Arabia, from the UAE, from Oman, from Qatar, and from Egypt, countries that Israel wanted to be part of its alliance against Iran. But we did not hear an outright condemnation coming from Jordan, just the fact that they don't want an escalation, and that could be part of the representation of their actual stance when it comes to a potential attack coming from Israel to Iran. So the air defense systems, this is what we know so far. The air defense systems of Iran, they intercepted Israeli projectiles and missiles. And again, the fact of them being projectiles or missiles is something that's being looked into by the Iranian authorities, because this attack just happened yesterday. And we had confirmations that there were casualties coming from Iran. What did Israel say? Well, Israel said that we are conducting specific targeted attacks in Iran on military targets. So we can already establish that Israel avoided targeting the nuclear facilities and the oil facilities in Iran. And Israel is only resorting to attacking military targets or attempting to attack military targets in Iran. It already shows you that this country is intimidated and is afraid of Iran. Then, very limited success when it comes to Israel, seeing as it has one of the most advanced air forces in the region with some of the most advanced technologies supported by the United States of America. And the level of attack coming against Iran does not match comparable really with the attacks that we saw from Iran. And I mean, from a personal perspective, I was covering the Iranian attack on Israel for 6 hours on the 1st of October. And I had an overstretched video of 1 hour, 20 minutes that I could have finished in 25 or 30 minutes. Yesterday shows you the difference when it comes to the attacks, really, and the fact that there wasn't anything substantial. This is not coming just from me. The popular response coming from Israel, both from a political echelon perspective and from the population perspective, showed that the Israelis consider the Israeli response to be very timid. It reached a level where people in the war cabinet, without naming themselves, saying that the attack that we carried out against Iran does not match the level of intensity that Iran had with its attacks on Israel. And that was visible from the evidence that we've seen. Okay. Israel said it's the beginning of an attack. But what we've seen so far is only 2 rounds of attacks yesterday. We are not seeing a continuation of this. And Israel hasn't changed its advice when it comes to the defense of the civil population following these attacks. What did Iran say? And this is where we start to get an understanding as to what's happening on the ground. And I will share some articles with you here from Iranian media in relation to this attack. And we're going to start off from the Islamic Republic News Agency. Firstly, we have this article here from IRNA saying that the Israeli regime used US-controlled airspace in Iraq to attack Iran. The statement issued late on Saturday said that the Israeli fighter jet stationed within a range of 100 kilometers from the Iranian borders in the Iraqi airspace controlled by the US had fired a number of air-launched missiles at Iranian targets in the early hours of the day. It said that Iranian radar units in the border provinces of Ilam and Khuzestan and near the capital Tehran suffered minor and ineffective damage as a result of the Israeli aggression, adding that the radar units have either been repaired or are being resurfaced. During this illegal and illegitimate move, a significant number of the missiles were traced and detected, and the enemy's planes were blocked from entering the country's airspace, said the statement. And that on its own is an extremely significant accomplishment when it comes to Iran's defense capabilities. Not only that they are intercepting projectiles and missiles outside of Iranian airspace, they are blocking these most advanced fighter jets coming from Israel to invade Iranian airspace. The Iranian General Staff said that Iran reserves the right to respond to the aggression at an appropriate time, adding that the country reiterates the need for reaching a sustainable ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon to prevent the killing of innocent people in those regions. And I will get to more statements in a bit coming from Iran about the retaliation and what they could use this retaliation and how they could use it in particular as leverage when it comes to applying pressure on the United States, mainly to try and impose a ceasefire in the region. It also warned that the criminal and terrorist breeding government of the US to contain Israel or face further problems because of the regime's wars in the region. Again, potentially hinting at leverage use of the attack or lack thereof up until there is a potential ceasefire, or we have another attack, something similar to what Iran's done following the assassination of the late martyr Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, and the delay of the response, giving time to the United States following requests from the United States from the Iranian authorities to give them some time. They told them that the ceasefire is around the corner, please don't attack Israel and hinder the prospect of a ceasefire. But the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, he reiterated clearly that, well, they told us that they said 1 week. Well, we've been here for over a month, nothing happened, and we had to punish this genocidal entity. This is the first article from IRNA. The second one is here, and it's specifically when it comes to the entitlement of defense against this aggression coming from Israel. So we had this article here in IRNA as well, saying that Iran is entitled to defend itself against the Zionist regime's acts of aggression. We had that, and we also had one other article. Let me check the one that I actually wanted to share with you. Okay, yeah, it's this one, so we will go to it now. Okay, Iran is entitled to defend itself against the Zionist regime's acts of aggression. Okay. In a statement issued today, the ministry reacted to the Israeli regime's Saturday airstrike on Iran. The Public Relations Office of the Iranian Air Defense Command issued a statement on Saturday announcing that Israeli airstrikes against the military centers in Tehran, the western province of Elam, and the southwestern province of Khuzestan have been intercepted and countered successfully. They continued with their statement. As per the inherent right to legitimate defense, which is enshrined in Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, Iran is duty-bound and entitled to defend itself against foreign acts of aggression, read the statement. Iran categorically condemns the Zionist regime's aggressive action against several military centers in Iran, considering it a clear violation of international law and the UN Charter, especially the principle of prohibiting threats or resorting to force against the territorial integrity and national sovereignty of countries, it added. As emphasized by the relevant authorities of the Islamic Republic, the Foreign Ministry said, based on the inherent right of legitimate defense, which is also enshrined in Article 51 of the UN Charter, Iran is entitled and duty-bound to defend itself against Israeli aggression. Calling for maximizing all its material and spiritual capabilities to defend its security and vital interests and recognizing its duties towards regional peace and stability, the Islamic Republic reminds the regional countries of their individual and collective responsibility to safeguard peace and stability in the region, the statement noted. And they continued, Iran thanks all peace-loving countries in the region and other states that have expressed disgust toward and condemned the aggressive action of the Israeli regime by recognizing the critical situation. It further noted the continuation of the occupation, illegal actions, and Israeli atrocities in the region, especially the genocide of the Palestinians and the aggression against the Lebanon, which is supported by the US and some other Western countries, is the main cause of tension and insecurity in the region, the statement underlined. The statement also urged the responsibility of the UN member states of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, member states of the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and the Convention on the Prohibition of the Genocide and International Humanitarian Law, to take an immediate step to halt genocidal war and aggression against Gaza and Lebanon and put an end to the Zionist regime's war mongering. So, again, calling, and there is an underlying also warning as well from potential participation, when especially they spoke about the responsibilities of the countries in the region when it comes to the attack. And again, we highlighted the fact that there is an investigation undergoing when it comes to the participation of Jordan. Now, here we move on to the confirmation of the assassination of some of Iran's military personnel in the attack. Statement on Saturday, the Islamic Republic of Iran Army said that two forces were martyred. The two forces were martyred while defending the country's security and preventing harm to the Iranian nation interest. Two others were injured while defending Iran's airspace and later succumbed to their wounds. Earlier, Iran's Air Defense Force announced that the Israeli regime attacked military sites in the three provinces of Tehran, Khuzestan, and Ilam, saying the attacks were successfully thwarted. So indeed, we have a confirmation that we have casualties. And the fact that we have casualties means that we have a response, or that, to be more specific, we are very likely to see a response. Now, when it comes to the condemnation, and this is something very significant, and we will get to the retaliation and what the officials in Iran said when it comes to the retaliation or the potential retaliation, when we're likely to see that, and what's the scale of it? What is the scale of that expected attack? Firstly, we had another article, again, coming from Iran about the condemnations. Now, with regards to the condemnations, they are exceptionally important because in many cases you will hear certain countries acting like nothing happened when we have attacks from Israel or the United States against them. But the fact that we have condemnations is very important, especially as some of these condemnations came from countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, added by Egypt as well. Again, countries that Israel traditionally tries to portray as, you know, part of their crew when it comes to Iran. But no, we had an outright condemnation. Firstly, they began. Saudi Arabia on Saturday strongly condemned Israel's latest military attacks on Iran, calling them a violation of Iranian sovereignty and a breach of international law. They expressed the kingdom's condemnation and denunciation of the attacks early Saturday local time, saying they constitute a serious violation of Iran's territorial integrity and contradicts established international norms and laws. The kingdom reiterated its firm stance against the continued escalation of conflict and expansion of violence, which it warned poses a threat to the security and stability of the region and of its peoples. We had the condemnation from Oman, Malaysia, Pakistan, of course, the Palestinian side, Hamas in particular, the UAE, again, strictly condemning Israel's attack on Iran, expressing deep concern, and again, talking about the importance of exercising utmost self-restraint. And we had other condemnations coming from Syria, Yemen, Qatar, and the Kuwaiti Foreign Ministry, with a strong condemnation by the Zionist regime against Iran. And the Egyptian Foreign Ministry condemned the aggression of the Zionist regime against Iran, stating that Egypt denounces any action that threatens the security and stability of the region. And they also called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, alongside, again, several other countries coming from particularly Turkey, Russia, and other countries too. So we're talking about clear positions, and that are very important, by the way, in terms of at least the diplomatic tone when it comes to condemning this attack that is coming on Israel. Now, when it comes to the response, okay, we are expecting a response from Iran because now Israel attacked Iran and they killed some of their military personnel inside of Iran. What type of response are we expecting, and what have we heard coming from Iran, multiple figures in Iran, and what are we potentially missing so far when it comes to the statements about this expected response that is most likely going to be labeled True Promise 3. Firstly, we had this report again in IRNA saying that the VP saying Iran to give proportionate response to Israeli aggression. Aggression is condemned by any standard or criterion, and the aggressor must await response. We will give a response proportional to the mischief of the aggressor at the appropriate time and conditions. That was from the Vice President Mohammad Reza Arif. He made the comments following separate meetings with representatives of Hamas and Hezbollah in Tehran. However, that wasn't the only response coming from Iran or clarification about a potential response following the genocidal state's aggression against Iran. We had a harsher statement coming from the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Abbas Araghchi said that Iran has no limits in defending itself. No limits exist when it comes to Iran defending its interests, territorial integrity, and its people. Iran does not set any boundaries for itself in protecting and defending its interests and territorial integrity and its people. That was quoted on Abbas Araghchi from the semi-official Tasnim News agency. And he also added, during our regional trips, we clearly presented Iran's definitive positions on regional issues and on defending itself and the axis of resistance. Likewise, Iran's ability to defend itself and Iran's ability to retaliate against those who intend to invade Iran were explained to all of them. So we had elaboration coming from an official perspective. We haven't had more elaboration coming from army figures in Iran, the supreme leader or the IRGC who conducted the attacks on Israel. But from what we understand so far, a response is coming. When? That is depending on a couple of things. Firstly, if Israel continues, it's very unlikely that Israel will continue the strikes on Iran. However, if this stopped now, in my opinion, Iran will probably use this as leverage to apply diplomatic pressure on the United States and give a set time frame. I assume, and again, that's my take, Iran will potentially give the United States and Israel supporters a few weeks, perhaps. If you don't have a settlement within that time, we are going to be attacking, or give them rough timings just so that they at least don't give away when they will exactly attack. But I assume that there will be certain messages being sent. And again, you can use that level of leverage when it comes to intimidation, because clearly Israel is scared. It's not only that Israel is scared, Israel is weak, and Israel is humiliated. Israel knows no actual war when it comes to people who can respond. Israel acts as the bully when it comes to people, when it comes to innocent civilians, when it comes to orphanages, when it comes to schools, when it comes to targeting children, and a genocide against the actual people who are helpless and cannot fight back. Yet when they are faced with force, when they are met with force, and sometimes just a glimpse of the force that they actually inflict on innocent civilians, they run away like cowards with their tail between their legs. A coward entity based on only intimidation, acting like a paper tiger against innocent civilians with their medieval barbarism and abhorrent actions, genocide and infanticide in Gaza, and continued aggression against the people of the region. Yet when it comes to Iran or countries that can fight back or have a level of intimidation against them, they're cowards, which shows you that they only understand the use of force. And we always spoke about the fact that Israel only understands the language of force. Israel is an expansionist, supremacist entity supported by the Western establishment led by the United States of America. Israel occupied Sinai. They did not leave unless they were met with force. Israel occupied half of Lebanon. They did not leave until they were met with force, primarily by the armed resistance led by Hezbollah. Israel occupied Gaza. They left Gaza after they were faced with force. And now Israel is showing its true coward state and how weak they are, indeed weaker than a spider's web, when they are faced with genuine power, with countries that have the force to defend themselves and have the capacity to hit Israel. And now also all of the world is understanding why we had this constant mainstream poisonous propaganda against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Why? Because they know your game and they are exceptionally clever when it comes to their politics and when it comes to their military, and they know how to deal with this arrogance coming from the Western elite against the region. So we are talking about intensified tensions now. Iran is likely to respond. We haven't had a lot of elaboration when it comes to their response. When will it be? How it's going to happen? They're most likely going to make it a surprise attack like they did on the 1st of October, leading to it being very effective. I assume they will do the same this time, but not before trying to use it as leverage to stop this genocidal maniac, Benjamin Netanyahu, from continuing his barbarism in Gaza. How effective that would be, I'm not sure it's going to be very effective. Benjamin Netanyahu is on a power trip. He is leading a death cult. He has many supporters in Israel, and he is enabled by the Western establishment to continue. And many in the Western establishment are still acting with all of the hypocrisy. You know, the British crime sinister, kid starver, he is telling, Iran, don't respond to Israel's attack, and Israel has a right to defend itself. Likewise with the US establishment, Israel has a right to defend itself. The same garbage that they constantly repeat, propaganda and psyops to try and brainwash the population. However, people are aware of what's happening. I don't think many people fall into the propaganda anymore when it comes to Iran. And as a matter of fact, Iran is establishing itself as a true champion of human rights in the region, not only by words, but also by actions.